The Rangitata diversion race was a dream in the minds of farmers in the mid-19th century when the Canterbury Plains were first farmed. Controlling the water provides both power and irrigation to the southern part of the region. Ben Curry, Chief Executive of Rangitata Diversion Race Management, explains.
The RDR is a water supply company that delivers water through mid-Canterbury to 3 irrigation schemes, to the Ashburton District Council and also to Trustpower for hydrogeneration. It was built way back in the 1930s, conceived actually even before then, but built in the 1930s and early 40s during the Depression, and runs from the Rangitata River that we're currently standing by all the way down to the Rakaia, some 67 kilometres further north. We've only seen the full development of the irrigation potential in the last 20 to 30 years. There's always been stock water in the county. As you know, mid-Canterbury and Canterbury itself is a pretty dry and arid place, and so the requirement to put water onto the land was really important. If you were to buy a dryland farm that happens to be in what's called the command area of one of the irrigation schemes, you would go to the irrigation company and say, I've got a 200 hectare farm, I want water, and they will calculate how much water you are entitled to. And you will then buy shares in that scheme, and that scheme will provide you with water that ultimately comes from RDR. The biggest issue that we have is the exclusion of fish out of the canal. A number of environmental groups, and notably Fish and Game, and to a degree Department of Conservation, were concerned about the numbers of fish that were being abstracted from the rivers. So it was very important for us to mitigate that. We do draw in particularly sports fish, salmon and trout, into the canal. So it's very important that we try and exclude them as much as we possibly can. The biggest problem that we've got here is a physical type screen really wouldn't work in our canal because of the amount of water that we're taking in. So a few years ago we installed a device here called the bioacoustic fish fence, and what that is effectively a curtain of bubbles that has an acoustic signature associated with it. The fish come around, they meet this wall of bubbles, swim away from it because they don't like it. Small fish find it very difficult to swim against that current, and also sand and sediment that we get in the race tends to settle on the bubble curtain and clog it. So there's quite a high maintenance bill that goes with it as well. We spend quite a lot of time and effort mechanically removing sediment and gravel. We have just behind me here a thing called the sand trap. The sand trap was built in the late 70s, and it's a very simple concept, and it just widens the race, and by widening the race you reduce the velocity. Therefore all the silts and sands that are held in suspension in the reduced velocity fall to the bottom. One of our consents allow us, when the river is at a certain level over 140 cumecs, then we can open up the big sluice gate, and effectively it's just like flushing the toilet. We just let all that sand and sediment return back down to the river.
Montalto, the second hydroelectric power station, was built in 1981.
We're at the Montalto power station, which sits across the RDR race up near the intake at the Klondike. So it's at the upper end of the RDR race, which is over 60 k's long. This is a small power station which is in series with another power station further down the track. It's a 1.9 megawatt station, and it can pass a full flow of the RDR, which is potentially up to 30 cumecs. So it's a modest size, but it's about a 2,000 home energy supply, if you like. Well, where you build storage, you've got potential to run it through race systems. It depends where it's specifically targeted. So where the storage and interface with race, then you have falls in the races, and you can use some new smart technology that's been developed around the place to use that natural fall in those races to put small energy production units in. And you put enough of those in and they actually amount to some substantial energy. We're the largest scheme in New Zealand, very successful in terms of we're a water supply company, but the downstream shareholders put an awful lot in the economy, $550 million into mid-Canterbury every year, and that's hugely significant. We are part of the whole debate in not only Canterbury but the New Zealand-wide debate. RDR has a role to play in that. A very recent initiative is our agreement with BCI, which is a new irrigation company that has rights to take water out of the Rakaia River, and they'll be using the RDR as part of the infrastructure to distribute that water further into their command area and other command areas outside of their original planned area. So it's RDR is very much part of that and wants to be part of that. It's a good example where farmers and generators can work together for the good of all.
John Van Polanen is a dairy farmer and also the chairman of the Ashburton-Lyndhurst irrigation scheme. He runs 640 cows on his 185 hectare property.
The production over the last 6 years has been going up. Since we've changed to spray irrigation, has been going up pretty steadily. From 230,000 kilos to this year we'll do 320, pretty close to it. Per cow production's 490 kilos per cow, the factory, and we rear about 30% replacements. The first 15 years of our farming here, the water was used via border dike irrigation, which meant that we got a flood flow every 1 day a week, 2 days a week, of 230 litres per second. And since we've changed to spray and to the piping system, we're now getting a constant flow of 75 litres per second. We're fully shared, so that gives us 2 shares per hectare, which gives us a water allocation of 0.41 of a litre per second per hectare. So that arrives at a constant rate via the pipeline. The water used to arrive, when we first changed to spray, it used to arrive as a flood flow, still the water. It went into this pond, and then we used electricity and pumps to pump it back out and pressurise the water to go to the pivot and to the rotor. Our power account used to be $140 a hectare, and since then it's probably gone up another 15% since we've changed to the pipe system. We've also got no pumps that we have to maintain or issues associated with filtering water. It's all filtered for us, so it's reasonably clean water that's arriving on farm now.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.